As British Columbia's forestry sector continues to get hit hard by U.S. tariffs, some federal ministers have headed to the province to discuss ways to support workers and businesses. Today, Minister of Canada, U.S. Trade Dominic LeBlanc emphasized that the government understands how critical the industry is.
The hour is grave. The moment is serious for us to continue to work together and to adjust and to increase the supports that the province and the government of Canada can put in place together.
As of today, I feel much more confident. The federal government understands the severity of the crisis facing the sector, the impact of the industry across the province and across the country, and the need to be more involved.
Ravi Parmar is the BC Minister of Forest, and he joins me now. Minister, it's good to see you again. Thank you for being here, sir.
Yeah, good to see you as well, David. Afternoon to all your listeners.
You must be doing something right out there in BC to have that many federal ministers in town the day before the federal budget. And David Eby is sounding much more reassured than we've heard your boss in a while. What exactly happened in these meetings?
British Columbia matters. We are a proud partner in this federation. And David, no different than many of the provincial premiers that you have on your show. Once in a while, we express our frustration, and we're glad that Ottawa heard us. And you're right, to be able to have Minister LeBlanc, Minister Hodson, Minister Robertson, as well as a whole host of other MPs in British Columbia the day before a very big day for the federal government, I think speaks volumes. And we were certainly reassured by them that softwood lumber is a top priority for the federal government, because over the past number of weeks, when we heard conversations around steel and aluminum and energy, it made us wonder whether we were by ourselves, softwood lumber.
But surely Tim Hodgson, Dominic LeBlanc, and Gregor Robinson walking into the room, that's not enough to reassure you, right? The presence is one thing. I mean, what exactly did they say to you? What exactly did they say to the Premier? And more importantly, what did they say to the industry that has calmed things down to this point?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the Premier for his leadership. He is showing national leadership. There's 50,000 British Columbian forestry jobs on the line, 200,000. And I don't like pitting industry against industry, but there are more forestry jobs than steel jobs and auto jobs. And we just haven't seen the federal government step up in the same way to help support this foundational industry for British Columbia and Canada, the same way they have supported other industries. Those industries, those sectors, those jobs just matter as much. But you're right, showing up is just part of it, hearing our concerns and delivering action. And we were reassured by Minister LeBlanc and Minister Hodson in particular that over the course of the next number of weeks, they'll be taking considerable actions to be able to hear our proposals and hopefully deliver dollars. I would say, David, to do two things. One is to stabilize this sector, to be able to deal with the fact that we are losing jobs every single day in this sector because of the actions of Donald Trump and his tariffs. But secondly, to help transform the sector. I keep saying this to workers that I meet. I never want to ensure that workers like the workers that I meet face consequences like this ever again. We have to transform this sector in a way that makes sure that we're not reliant on the United States as a singular trade partner for our goods.
I think the last time we spoke, Minister, there was this $1.2 billion in softwood lumber aid that had previously been announced by the government, but beyond the announcement, the money hadn't moved. There was an agreement to set up some sort of a working group now to make sure that that happens. I mean, how quickly do you think this money can get to the workers and to the companies that need this help right now?
Yeah, you bet. Well, look, they were very receptive to our proposal for a task force to be able to bring forward ideas to stabilize the sector, but also look towards that long-term transformation that this sector desperately needs. The $700 million liquidity package, I think last time I was on your show, I was frustrated that that wasn't out. I think within hours of being on your show, they got the text from Minister Hodson that they were putting that out, and I'm very pleased they did. BDC's been working with our government to be able to support our sector to be able to access those dollars. The $500 million diversification fund, we shared with them that our expectation is that 50% of that is going to come to British Columbia. And we're hoping to work with them through this task force to be able to ensure that those dollars, as well as more dollars that need to be invested by British Columbia and the federal government, are done so in a way that helps transform this sector so workers are never put in this position ever again.
Okay, is there anything else you wanted to complain about on the show that might get the federal government action? Because it sounds like raising this last time got it done. Is there, or it seems like it's all moved in a pretty good direction after today.
Well, only time will tell, David. No doubt that having the federal government here in British Columbia is one thing. They said that they need a little bit of time to be able to come back and fully respond to our asks. And we, of course, are polite here in British Columbia and are going to give them the opportunity to do that. But we're hoping that we'll be able to work together. And I'm certainly going to be holding them accountable, because I've got forestry workers holding me accountable every single day. I'm going to fight like hell for their jobs, for their livelihoods, for their paychecks. Because, just as I was going on your show, I got notice of another mill that's curtailing here in British Columbia, and I'm getting too many of those notices every single day. And so we need the federal government to step up. And I was certainly assured by Minister LeBlanc, as well as the team that arrived from Ottawa, that they hear us and that they noted the moment in time that we're in and the need for the federal government to respond the same way they've responded for other sectors as well.
Yeah, look, there's no question every day this drags on, there's contagion throughout the economy, and people lose jobs, they lose income, and they lose businesses. And I know one of the things that Minister LeBlanc said today was that he updated Premier Eby on the state of negotiations with the United States, even though the talks are stalled and off right now. I mean, what is the view of the government of British Columbia on where things stand right now after these meetings with federal officials?
Well, we certainly shared with the federal government our desires to ensure that we're working in a coordinated way to communicate directly with Americans. We have decided to pause our advertising campaign that we were set to launch later this week, David, as an example. But we're looking forward to working with the federal government to be able to communicate our grievances to the United States. And I'm certainly hopeful that President Trump will take the opportunity to be able to get back to the negotiating table, because on softwood, his communities in the United States are paying the price for homes that are costly. And I think we also have to recognize the fact that there are more duties and tariffs on Canadian lumber heading down south than Russian lumber. Those two alone, I think, are significant enough for the federal government to be able to go to the United States and will address this issue once and for all.
But just on the ads and on the update on the state of the talks, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall Premier Eby saying even after the Ontario ads caused such a backlash that you were going to persist with it, but now you're not as a government. Was it the update on what's happening in the negotiations with the White House that led to this alignment with the federal government, or was it something else that caused you to change course here?
Well, I would say when we were speaking about this a week or two ago, we were really frustrated. We were not getting a response from the federal government around the importance of forestry and the importance of softwood. And both the Premier and myself were reassured by the ministers and the federal government today that they see the importance of forestry being a national priority. And that reassurance is important, and we're willing to work with them to ensure that the investments from the federal government land to be able to support workers and support businesses. And we're certainly looking forward to working with them on that and holding them accountable to their commitments.
But is this a recognition, I guess, Minister, as a final point, that I know every province has its own frustrations with the United States, and there has been a growing frustration about lack of information sharing. But is this a recognition that it's best to just speak with one voice and let the federal government take the lead on this right now? Is that how BC is viewing the state of things?
Very much so, David. I would say that I would just reiterate that we were frustrated, and we felt that the best way to be able to take our frustrations was directly to Americans, to communicate to Americans about the absurd policies of their president, but agree that the next step forward for us through the work that we're doing here in British Columbia for our foundational sector is to ensure that we work with the federal government on a coordinated approach, a Team Canada approach, and we're certainly looking forward to working with them in regards to that.
Ravi Parmar, British Columbia's Minister of Forests. We appreciate your time, sir. Thanks for coming on today, Minister.
You bet. Always a pleasure. Take care.